I thought one of the most bizarre moments of the night was when Carly Fiorina. Let me back up a little bit. Dodd-Frank was passed, and Dodd-Frank regulates the banks. And what Dodd-Frank does is it provides this broad superstructure. It says, okay, the government now has the power to do this and this and this and this, right? Change reserve requirements, regulate banks in this way and that way. However, the individual agencies that are responsible for overseeing the banks and the executive branch have to actually write the rules and then put them into place. Now, it's been, 5 years, I think, since Dodd-Frank was passed? And, no, it's been longer than that. It's in any case, it's been in that neighborhood. And because of Republican obstruction, by and large, most of these rules have not been written. I mean, the one consequential thing that came along with Dodd-Frank that actually did get done was the creation of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And that was, Elizabeth Warren's child, and she made that happen. But if Dodd-Frank was actually being used and had been all this time, and the rules had actually been written so that it could be applied, then the big banks would be broken up. But somehow Carly Fiorina got that upside down. Here she is.
Democrats passed Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank has caused 10 Wall Street banks too big to fail have become 5 even bigger, more powerful Wall Street banks, and thousands of community banks have gone out of business. This is an example of crony capitalism. So we need to repeal Dodd-Frank, just like we need to repeal Obamacare.
Right. Well, happy to run Hewlett Packard, which gets, mind-boggling tax breaks wherever they can. I'm guessing Carly Fiorina is an expert on crony capitalism, but Dodd-Frank is not a piece of that. Lindsey Graham. This is, it's so funny. Danielle and Shane and I were talking about this morning, and about how, really the whole Republican thing last night was like, who's tougher than whom, right? Who's the real tough guy here? Mine is bigger than yours, that kind of thing. And here's Lindsey Graham trying to do his little piece of this.
And what nations specifically are cheating us?
Well, China is cheating. They manipulate their currency to create a discount for products made in China, and we don't do a damn thing about it. They're building islands over resource-rich territory owned by others because they can. They cyber attack us, steal our intellectual property, and nobody pushes back. If I'm president, we're going to push back against China.
So Lindsey Graham, he must have introduced legislation. He must have authored and introduced legislation pushing back on China, right? Working against currency manipulators? Oh, that legislation was filibustered by Republicans. That was Democratic legislation. The hypocrisy is mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. Lindsey Graham, to the best of my knowledge, and please, if I'm wrong, and I know that there are Republican fact-checkers out there listening, call in and correct me. I'd love to know if I'm wrong. But to the best of my knowledge, Lindsey Graham complaining about China, Lindsey Graham has never been the principal author of any legislation that would stop anybody from cheating, or that would take us out of any of these so-called free trade deals that are so beloved by the big corporations that own virtually every single one of these Republicans. Bobby Jindal said, he in a shout out to the Hard Reich and to the Israel and Saudi lobbies, basically packed he gets the award, Bobby Jindal, for the largest number of misstatements, half-truths, and absolute BS jammed into one long sentence for the entire evening. I mean, Bobby Jindal wins the prize. Here he is.
This is a bad deal. He has declared war on trans fats and a ceasefire with the largest state-sanctioned sponsor of terrorism. Look, a good deal would say anytime, anywhere inspections, would say no centrifuges, no enriched uranium, would say they have to cut off ties to Hamas, Hezbollah, and terrorist groups. They have to recognize Israel's right to exist. They have to free those American prisoners. We will only, and no plutonium pathway, we will only gradually lift sanctions, not immediately. Syria it loves it. Israel hates the deal. That tells you all you need to know when our friends hate it and our enemies love it.
Thank you, Governor.
Right. We also want a pony, right? I mean, we got to have a pony. Okay, Bobby Jindal. John Kasich. Now, John Kasich is the guy who went to a Koch brothers meeting, and when one of the billionaire wives there, the wife of the guy who owns the football team, I guess, or baseball team down in Arizona, asked him why he allowed Obamacare Medicaid coverage to be expanded in the state of Ohio. He said, "I don't know about you, lady, but when I die, they're not, the St. Peter's not going to ask me whether I cut the size of government. He's going to ask me what I did for the poor." At which point, the billionaire lady got up and walked out of the room along with about 15 other people, and John Kasich has not yet been invited back to any of the Koch brothers events and probably never will be again. So here's what he had to say, and I thought this was actually a thoughtful comment. John Kasich.
Well, I'm not here to criticize my party, but what I will tell you is I think that economic growth is not just an end unto itself. I think it's very important that with economic growth comes responsibility and ability to help people who live in the shadows. But it's something that I think our party needs to talk more about so that people across this country understand that we get them. Sometimes, Jack, our problem is people don't necessarily think we get them.
Yeah, well, actually, no. It's that people realize that the Republicans, by and large, are just shills for the billionaires and the multinational corporations, and they don't give a rat's ass about the average working person, and particularly about women or minorities. John, that's really the problem. But, John Kasich, the governor of Ohio. So, with probably the most rational point of the evening. Got a few more for you after we come back from the break.